Welcome to Talk to Brazil with Tom Rioch, the business connector to business in Brazil. Welcome to Talk to Brazil, the business connection, the world's first English language internet radio program about business in Brazil since 2009. I'm Tom Rioch, an American living in Brazil for many years and known as the King of Networking, and talking from my studio in Campinas, São Paulo, Brazil. Today's guest is Marcelo Moraes. Marcelo is Brazilian. He's a digital content strategist, marketing executive, and a specialist in business transformation, digital transformation, and business development. Marcelo is talking to us from his office in Toronto, Canada, and Marcelo is a participant at the Humber College Professional and Continuing Education School of Media Studies and Information Technology. Marcelo and I are also colleagues and members of the Future Advisory Board, which meets in the ASIC, the Industrial and Commercial Association of Campinas. Marcelo is also a frequent guest on my Portuguese language podcast, BBN Brazil Business Network. So with that, Marcelo, hello and welcome to Talk to Brazil.
Hi, Tom. Good morning. Good morning to all Talk to Brazil listeners. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today and share some thoughts.
And we've been, obviously, in the Portuguese version talking constantly about digital transformation, marketing strategies. But today I've seen you've created a website called Naked Brands. And where you say at the banner at the top of that Naked Brands site is how brands can thrive in a world where everyone is exposed. Do you want to share your thoughts with our listeners?
Sure. And before saying how brands can thrive, maybe explaining more about this concept of naked brands would be useful and clarifying. Brands are naked because we are in a world where everybody is exposed, and that's closely related to digital media. In a world where you can interact with everyone real time and different platforms, let's say that it's pretty important what people say and think about you, about your brand, than what you say about yourself.
Right.
And saying about yourself was all what brands were about, like, let's say 10 years ago, when the communication was more like from brands to their communities, their consumers. But now the brands say whatever they want to say, but people react to that. And they really expect brands to walk the talk, to go beyond advertising, for example. This is the concept of like naked brands. All brands are naked and exposed. And because of that, you have many opportunities, you have many challenges to overcome. And my goal with this blog is to bring this subject, to share my thoughts and to hear people interested on that, and to learn from good and bad examples, and out of that, thriving, out of that, doing what we should do in a world in which we have no control.
Just a point here, when we're talking about, you mentioned being exposed, also a word comes to mind, being transparent, because obviously companies say they want to be transparent, either with their market, with their consumers, with their employees. Is being transparent and exposed the same, or is it different?
Yeah, you can say both of them. You could say both of them might mean naked, but I believe that naked brands, like brands that try to be transparent, they understood this world and they act like they really walk the talk. But I'd say that most of brands don't know they are naked, or if they know, they don't know how to plan, how to do whatever they have to do in this brand new world. So it's a concept very broad, and I'm approaching it like I said, you are naked. You should know that you're naked. You should know what it means to you. Right. You should know what opportunities and challenges it brings to your brand, and you should know how to thrive. That's essential today.
Well, when you say that many companies don't know, what what you're saying then is they only find out when customers or the general public start complaining or start throwing literally rocks at them, right? Say we have coming back and attacking them either through the social media or through the general press. Is that how they wake up to it?
Sometimes that's how it happens, because let's say, for example, B2B brands, they're naturally less exposed than B2C like brands because people don't talk about B2B companies, service providers, or even product providers for like other industries. But all of a sudden you might have like a leakage or a problem in your plant, or an employee complaining about something that goes on, like let's say in a plant, and they're exposed to. People will start talking to you even if they are not connected to you. Of course, it's not a huge exposition like compared to B2C brands, but that's important too, because that might affect like your stakeholders. And that's pretty important for every company.
No, and exactly because of the digital reality that we live, information flows in microseconds. So what is perceived as being a little or small can become very large and big very quickly.
That's it. And worldwide, you have no boundaries for that. Something that happens in Brazil right now can like be a subject like in Europe in like within a seconds.
Mm-hmm. No, there's a good side of that also. We're talking about the good side of the seconds, and the same coin, the one side of that coin could be negative for somebody, and the other side's positive. Just recently, this morning, I was looking at an article, because obviously what's in the headlines people are talking about is the reality in China and the virus. But on the other side, on the good side for Brazil is the fact that Brazil will become an even stronger supplier of food and food-producing commodities to the world, partly because of that.
Yeah. It's a crazy thing because, let's say, a little bit before the coronavirus thing, everybody was concerned about Brazilian trade, international trade, because China and United States are moving forward in their commercial agreement.
Right.
So in the long term, that matters more than the coronavirus, which should be no subject, hopefully, in a few months. But all of a sudden, you have coronavirus, and that becomes an opportunity to Brazil. And that's how the world works today. Things are very fast. They change fast. And as you're totally right. There are challenges for that, but there are many opportunities if you know how to take advantage of what's going on. No matter if a consequence of something bad, or if it's just thriving through a new reality.
Right.
The world is full of opportunities. I'm sure of that.
No, you mentioned another thing was if we talk about the virus, but the virus is an example. Almost the same day you're talking about the downside, the upside is that pharmaceutical companies are racing to develop vaccines, racing to develop solutions. The manufacturers of the masks are working day and night to supply masks to the whole world. So things happen, and they happen very quickly. Yeah.
And this, I think, the most important thing today is the speed of everything. Everything is faster, as we have already talked about, because of digital world, digital medium. This is one of the main reasons. Because of technology in general, things are pretty fast. So one of the keys for me, if you manage a brand and if you want to thrive in this new world, it's being fast. It doesn't mean that you have to rush anywhere, everywhere. You have to be very focused, but you have to be fast to take advantage of opportunities, and also to give answer when you're required to do so.
Mm-hmm. Well, this concept of naked brands, is that more common, the concept more common in North America, or is it a concept throughout the world?
I think it would apply to the whole world. As far as I know it, I've been living in Canada for, let's say, more than 6 months. So I'm kind of getting aware of what's going on here. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty aware of what happens in the United States, Europe, and somehow to China too. So it applies to the whole world. with some differences. Let's say in China, for example, you have more control of what's being said, not only in social media, but let's say specifically on social media and how people react to that. Mm-hmm. And you also have the cultural differences between countries. But this is a concept that applies to everyone because of the base is the same for everyone. It's a word fast because of technology, and technology is everywhere.
Well, as we've said other times, and it's obvious that technology is literally in the hand of everyone. Everybody walks around with technology. They don't have to go somewhere to use technology or to be exposed to it. It's in their hand.
Yeah, that's it.
Is that the same thing? Is it like here in Brazil, it's everybody walking around plugged in earphones, and in Toronto, in Canada, is that the same thing? Do you walk out in the streets, everybody have headphones on and looking at their smartphone? Yeah.
We're, in my opinion, really becoming a global community. It doesn't matter if you want to leave European Union or no. It's a global community. People behavior around the world is very similar. Again, because technology is everywhere. There's the four largest digital companies, let's say Amazon, Google, Facebook, and Apple, they are pretty much around all the world, with some exceptions in China. But because of that and because of their strength, those behaviors they've been becoming more usual, no matter where you are. The only difference here in Canada, from Brazil at least, is that because of the weather here, you would see people with their mobiles and earphones, Bluetooth earphones, most of them, holding a mug with hot milk or hot coffee. Yeah. That's the difference in between Brazil and Canada. The main difference, at least.
Well, and keeping it there, maybe they use their earphones to keep their ears warm, right?
Yeah. And to, let's say, avoid taking their hands out of their pockets, because it's pretty cool.
Well, I see that happening. I was exposed to the other day in a meeting where we talk about voice search, right? Voice. I think we're to the point where you really don't even have to hold your device anymore. You can keep your gloves on. You can hold your coffee. Have your device hung somewhere from your neck or whatever. It could be part of your glasses. It could be part of anything. And you really don't have to hold it anymore, right?
Yeah, that's it. It's more comfortable, more convenient for people. And that's how technology, what it does best. Technology that really spread is technology that's accessible. Let's say mobile, something that's today, it's easy to use, so you might have a PhD, you might be literate, but it's pretty used to and convenient to use a smartphone. Same thing for all technology when it's accessible and easy to use, it's going to spread, and voice search is under that concept too.
Now at school, at Humber College, obviously we're talking the whole world's digital and that's sort of obvious, but you're at a school. The focus is social media studies and information technology, right? So this is the baseline of what's happening in the world. So when you walk into the classroom, you walk into the school, how do you feel? How do you feel all this technology happening? Is it more intense because it's a school, or you just analyze what's happening now and then try to plan for the future? How was your day in school?
Okay, that's a good question. One of the things I have realized in Canada, and I believe it's a little different from Brazil, all the technology, all the innovation they have here, and it's a lot. Toronto is one of the most important innovation hubs in the world, the whole world. It's kind of something, I don't know if I can say taken for granted, but something common. People just use it. They're use it to have technology everywhere, accessible, easy to use. So it's not something like let's say that shines. Right. You just see people using everywhere, and that's how it happens in Humber too. Like many institutions worldwide, they have cutting-edge technology for students, like digital communication systems, and everywhere. So, but what I see that I believe is different, and we've been discussing it a lot at Humber, my classes, with my colleagues and professors, is that because of all this technology blast, the value today and maybe a trend, I do believe in that actually, it's a simplicity. It's as people have access to many different devices, many different digital products or whatever it is, simplicity is a key point for success today. So if you deliver to your audience, your consumers, something that's simple, that adds to their day, and do not have to go to let's say 3 different places to find the same the information they want or whatever, brings simplicity to their lives, that worth a lot.
So we talk about the user experience. So you want to make the user experience let's say, simple in the sense of not complex.
Yeah, that's it. And making people's lives easier. That's one of the goals, one of the trends that we see. As technology is everywhere, how do we improve that technology so that make people's lives simpler and easier to be, managed by them?
And that translates into being a better life, right? Better lifestyle.
Yeah.
More livable. Now, compare for us and our listeners, because I mentioned I'm talking from Campinas. We're part of a group that meets here in Campinas in the Future Advisory Board. We're talking about the technology and what you see day to day in Toronto. And for our listeners, Campinas is a smart city in the sense that it's a reasonably technologically involved. How are the differences that you feel from a Campinas to a Toronto? Obviously, there's a gap, but we're not talking about light years of a gap. There's a slight gap, isn't it that way?
Tom, that's a long story. I'll try to make it a little bit shorter. But the thing is, I was reading, let's say 3 months ago, an interview from a professor of University of Toronto, which is one of the probably 5 most renowned universities worldwide. And this professor was saying that back in 1980s, they understood that technology would rule the world. Of course, they didn't know how, they didn't know how people would use it, what kind of devices we would have, but they had this vision. And that vision kind of spread not only through universities, but also through government, and both of them, they are keys to develop whatever it is under their decision. And their decision at that time was, if this is going to be key, really should promote the technology. What does that mean? That means that they invested in let's say entrepreneurs. It's pretty more common today, but they've been doing that for more time than us, for example. Right. It means that the government itself, it's it offers more digital services for the population. And the schools, which follow rules, some rules defined by the government also. Many of the things that my kids do today at their schools, they do it digitally. So the ecosystem in general, it's been talking about technology and lately about digital and everything else in a way that Brazil in general, not only Campinas, but probably actually certainly Campinas is way above the average, but it's not something that we've been talking about, let's say, in 30 years. Right. And if we're talking about, maybe we're not doing as steadily as we should be doing, like they've been doing here. So that means a lot. That maybe means that they're not talking about technology a lot, because they're living it. They've been living it for more time than we Brazilians have been doing. Right.
So for them, it's old. It's they're accustomed to it. It's not the newness. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's old. I got your point, but for them, something, as usual as having water in their taps.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's even a story, because there, and one of the things that I felt the other day talking with persons here of the gap when I first came to Brazil. What was the gap between the United States, where I came from, and Brazil? That gap years ago was 25 years. Because what you just said, in the United States or in Canada, you imagine wherever you move in the country, you're going to open up, you're going to have water, you're going to have electricity, you're going to have access to energy for heating, cooling. It's going to be there, right?
Yeah. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, just to make a point.
No, but that's the point. That's everywhere. Here, even in Brazil, we still have places where that's not the way.
Yeah, and I think that says a lot. If you recover this story of like a great American entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs and I missed the name of Microsoft, like
Bill Gates.
Bill Gates, that's it. Their businesses were like launched, let's say 40 years ago, 30 years ago, maybe in the beginning of the 80s, and that says a lot. And I was reading this post on LinkedIn the other day from Ricardo Amorim, who is a Brazilian economist, and he was talking about like this Brazilian automaker brand and how we kill our entrepreneurs. He was like a Brazilian automaker from the 80s. I'm pretty bad in remembering names today. You can help me with that if you wish to. But we kill our entrepreneurs. So we have people skilled in Brazil, we have entrepreneurs, have business, but you don't have the ecosystem support, like from governments who should drive innovation, who should help this ecosystem to develop and to bring wealth for all the economy.
Well, I want to take that point, and I agree with you. What you mentioned, to talk and compare Campinas to Toronto, that you said that we could talk all day. But really what I want to do is to reserve that for another podcast. I want to come back and structure that in a way, because obviously one of my objectives in Talk to Brazil is to attract companies, persons, investors to Brazil. But more specifically, because Brazil, what I say is it's a big cake. It's a big pie. And for many foreign persons, investors, to have an understanding of the size, they sort of look at Brazil, and it's very complex. It's a complex country. It's very big. So my suggestions are coming, and what I'm trying to do, and this I'll ask you to help, is to cut a small slice of the pie. And what I want to do on the podcast is talk more deeply about slices. All right.
All right.
One of those slices is going to be Campinas, because obviously I'm here, you're here, other people are here, and we know that. Another slice might be Recife, the northeastern part, which also has an industrial base, has a technological base, has an export base, has a lot going for it. So I want to start talking about slices of the pie so that our listeners, our global listeners, can have a better understanding of parts. It's even hard for us, and you know that. It's hard for us to explain the whole pie, right? Because even from our standpoint, we really don't know to the depth of what's happening in the north and the south. We have a better understanding of what's happening around in our backyard. So that's part of what I want to talk about the next time we're on. Does that make more logical sense to you? Even Canada, we're talking Canada. Toronto is probably different than the West Coast, right?
Sure it is. It makes total sense. And as a Brazilian and as someone that has lived and worked in Brazil for pretty much from his entire life, I also like to add some points. Brazil is one of the largest markets in the world. We're more than 200, maybe 10 million people. This is pretty important for every brand, for every business that want to grow. And it's a market with many growth opportunities. It's like people from other countries know that maybe America, maybe Europe, they do not have great opportunities in terms of growth, and Brazil does. Also, what I have talked about technology, I was talking about Canada and let's say government policy for 40 years. But Brazil, in the last, let's say, 10 years, we've been doing a lot in terms of technology. Some of them, let's say, for the whole country. Some of them, as you said, in specific place like Campinas. Campinas is an amazing hub in terms of services, in terms of technology, in terms of products or plants or whatever. It's huge. So I don't want to just blame Brazil. Brazil, like any other country in the world, has like its strengths, its challenges, whatever it's called. But we do have a great country, a country full of opportunities for brands that seek that.
And the success stories of those who have come. And there are many of those stories. We live that, even in our group that we participate in, other groups we're in. We see that every day.
Yeah, hundreds of stories, maybe thousands of stories of business that thrive in Brazil. But Brazil,
the
like
unicorns
let's say
that started
America,
here in
Canada,
Campinas, right?
Those big countries.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was saying the unicorns that have started here in our own backyard, that have gone out and become billion-dollar companies. They're in our backyard.
That's true. That's true. You have many entrepreneurs in Brazil. The Brazilian innovation ecosystem is amazing. Campinas, São Paulo, Recife, Florianópolis, Santa Catarina, many different hubs that show what Brazilians can do.
Well, Marcelo, for today, I think we're coming to the end of our time, and I know you're off to school in a little bit, and you have to get into class. So I want to thank you again for being part of Talk to Brazil, and we're going to be back, and the next subject will probably be what we just said. We'll talk about the gaps.
Good. I appreciate your the opportunity you gave me to talk to your listeners, to talk to you regarding my experiences in Canada, my Brazilian experiences too. It was a pleasure talking to you. I would like to invite your listeners again to visit my blog, nakedbrandca.wordpress.com, and join the conversation. I think everything should be about good conversations in which you aim to build something, So I invite you and your listeners to, join the conversation.
We'll do that. And just repeating that, it's Naked Brands CA for Canada. So nakedbrandsca.wordpress.com. And you'll find Marcelo Moraes and also on LinkedIn for more information and contacts, okay?
Okay, just perfect.
So have a good day. Have a good class.
Thank you, Tom. Have a good day, you too.
We will. And I want to thank our listeners and our audience, and also our sponsor, Focus MI Market Intelligence. Focus MI specializes in market research for the Brazilian agricultural market. And more about them on their site, focusmi.com. You can visit our website, talktobrazil.com, and that's TALK, 2, BRAZIL.com, to find our previous shows of Talk to Brazil. So again, remember, when you talk to Tom, you talk to Brazil and the world. Goodbye, and thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to Tom Rioch on Talk to Brazil, the business connector to Brazil.